Hello everyone, thank you for joining. We are going to wait just a couple of minutes to make sure everyone is able to sign into the webinar, and then we'll get started. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Hello everyone, and welcome to our coffee break webinar, Serving Up Recipient Copies, TaxBandits Online Access Solution. Distributing recipient copies is easier than ever. Today we'll detail what the process involves and how to grant your recipients secure access to electronic copies of their forms. My name is Christina, and we at TaxBandits are excited to help you stay informed and IRS compliant. If you have any questions during the presentation, please add them to the chat. If you're unable to see the webinar in full screen, please try clicking the square in the upper right of the webinar to enlarge the view. As a reminder, TaxBandits is an IRS authorized e-file provider. While we love to talk about taxes and have years and years of experience, we are not tax advisors. If you need assistance with preparing returns or any other specific questions, please consult a certified tax preparer or the IRS. So, what's on the menu today? Recipient copy distribution deadlines for 1099s and W-2s, IRS requirements for recipient copies, the services available for recipient copy distribution, an overview of TaxBandits online access, how to enable online access for your recipients, and we'll have a brief Q&A. Before we get started, we're just going to take a quick look at using the GoToWebinar toolbar.
Hello, thanks for joining today's webinar. You can enlarge your screen for the optimal viewing experience using these buttons. You can also click the arrow here to view the hidden menu. The section at the very bottom will twirl out a menu that allows you to ask questions for the host to answer. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you enjoy this webinar.
Many IRS forms have recipient copies that must be distributed by January 31st. For example, Form W-2, Form 1099 NEC, Miscellaneous, K, INT, and DIV. It's also important to note that Form W-2 and Form 1099 NEC must be e-filed by January 31st as well. The IRS requires that employers and payers postmark mailed copies by the January 31st deadline. The IRS does permit electronic recipient copies. However, these requirements are more specific than most people think. For example, you can't just email copies to their employees or payees. Employers and payers must get the recipient's consent to receive an electronic copy. Per the IRS, the consent by the recipient must be made electronically in a way that shows that the recipient can access the statement in the electronic format in which it will be furnished. You must notify the recipient of any hardware or software changes prior to furnishing the statement. TaxBandits supports postal mail and online access for recipient copies. With postal mail, we use USPS address validation to help ensure the recipient's address is valid. And for security purposes, we mask PII or personal identifiable information. With online access, to simplify the distribution of recipient copies, TaxBandits allows recipients to view and download copies of their 1099 and W-2 forms through our secure portal. Recipients can access their forms at any time once they give their consent to receive forms electronically. With TaxBandits online access, the recipient receives an email directing them to our secure portal. When they click the button or link, they're brought here where they have to consent to the electronic disclosure. The recipient's consent is then tracked in your TaxBandits account and available for your view. Once the recipient has consented, they'll be prompted to enter the last 4 digits of their TIN for security purposes. The recipient will then have access to their document, and here you can see the recipient's view of the online access portal. As you can see, distributing recipient copies using our online portal, the recipient will have access to all of their forms from each year in one place. And all you need to grant online access is the recipient's email address. You can then make sure online access is selected on the Review and Select Services page when filing, and you'll see a total of the services that you've selected on the right, including federal filing, state filing, postal mailing, and online access. If you prefer, you can provide recipients with postal mailed and online access copies of their forms, or you can opt for TaxBandits to mail copies to recipients that didn't provide consent. Now that you're familiar with how to securely distribute recipient copies, let's take a look at what's new and enhanced for tax year 2023. Unlimited TIN matching helps you ensure your recipient's accurate information is being reported. An enhanced client portal makes communicating with clients easier than ever. Our smart upload tool allows you to import Form 1099 NEC details using your own template. Our W-9 manager makes obtaining vendor information easy and secure. And the option to schedule your filing gives you peace of mind knowing your forms will be filed while also allowing you to edit the forms before that scheduled date. We'll now have a quick Q&A, so if you haven't already, go ahead and put those questions in the chat box and we'll review them. Okay, let's see. Our first question is, can I have you print and mail my recipient copies and also distribute them electronically? Yes, yeah, you can absolutely opt for both postal mail and online access with TaxBandits. And many of our clients will have us print and mail and also distribute electronic copies. This way they've met their IRS requirements. And when the recipient loses their hard copy in a couple of months or even a couple of years, the payer or employer doesn't have to locate and print and mail another copy. They can just direct the recipient to the link to access their copy online. Our next question is, if I have you print and mail the recipient copies, will I still have access to copies of the forms for my records? And yes, you'll have access to copies of the forms that you file using TaxBandits in your account in your distribution center. So even if you have us distribute, you'll still have access to copies for your records. Our next question is, am I able to see who consented? And yes, you'll be able to see recipients that consented in your TaxBandits account, and that will be tracked there as well. Our next question is, do I have to file Form 1096 or W-3 separately from the 1099 and W-2 forms? TaxBandits actually generates the 1096 and the W-3s automatically based off of the 1099 and W-2 information that you file. So those will be available in the account for review and for record keeping. They are not required in e-filing, but they are automatically generated for your record keeping. Okay, let's see. We have a couple of members saying that they joined a little bit late and they would like to know if they'll be emailed a copy of the recording. And yes, we'll email all of the attendees a copy of the webinar just for your reference and review. And I think that is all that we have time for today. If we haven't gotten to your question, we will email you. And if you end up having more questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you all for joining us in this webinar from our Coffee Break series. Make sure to join us next week for our Coffee Break webinar, Avoid Latte Filing, TaxBandits Guide to Last Minute Client Communication. You can register now at taxbandits.com/webinar. If you have missed any of the prior webinars in our series, make sure to check those out on our YouTube channel. And if you have questions, feel free to contact us. If you do not already have a TaxBandits account, head over to taxbandits.com and create one now.